The combine has concluded, and there were some standout performers there. So we are going to go ahead and act as if the draft is happening today, and the combine is the last that we've seen of all of these prospects before they get drafted. So we are going to hop right into this mock draft, back into mock draft season, our favorite time of the year. If you would like to kick us off with the first overall pick.
Yep. With the first overall pick, we have the Titans sitting here. And the Titans, we'll just get this out of the way. The little first bit of this mock is going to kind of be day to day as usual because combine risers, it's hard to find anyone who was at the top and actually performed at the combine. But the Titans are sitting here and they're letting the phones ring because, news out of the combine is the Browns are very much going to be taking a quarterback in this draft cycle. So if someone wants their pick of the litter, they got to go ahead and they got to jump up to one. So Titans letting the phone rings and they actually pick one of these trade options. And that's going to be with the Giants. The Giants are going to be trading up for Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. They really need a quarterback. The organization is riding on them getting a quarterback and not bursting into flames this season because they don't have one yet again. So, with what I've seen, I think Shedeur Sanders is a better fit for New York. You got Malik Neighbors. You just need a guy to deliver the ball to Malik Neighbors accurately and let him create after the catch. So we have them going up to get their guy to play within a day ball structure and just pass accurately and finally get them off of the hot seat with a quarterback that can play with them for the future.
Yeah, there's all the rumors about Aaron Rodgers maybe going to New York, but I think it is much more in the best interests of Dable and of Joe Shane to keep their jobs to get a young guy rather than gamble on a washed up veteran in Rodgers. But at 2, we have the Browns needing a quarterback very badly and being thrilled to have their guy Cam Ward here at number 2. That's who they're taking. I think Cam Ward is the better prospect. I'm pretty sure you think that they're both pretty even tiered, but it's just whichever the team prefers. Cam Ward gives you a little bit more of a boost than Shedeur would with his bigger arm. I think maybe better legs and just kind of overall athletic profile being a little bit better. The Browns need to take a quarterback really badly in this class just because they don't have the money to sign a free agent option because of the Deshaun Watson contract. And they don't have another quarterback on their roster that I would feel comfortable letting them go into next season with. So for those reasons, Cam Ward at 2.
Yeah, and if you want to, as you said, with my thoughts on these 2 quarterback prospects that we had go 1 and 2, we have the scouting reports that drop every Friday. So this Friday, it's going to be Cam Ward if you're watching this within a couple of days of release. And then next Friday is going to be Shedeur Sanders. So I'm getting both quarterbacks out of the way in these coming weeks for scouting reports to get my full thoughts out there in those videos. But moving on to pick 3, we have the Titans. They traded out. They didn't want these quarterbacks. And they trade back to 3, and they still are able to get a guy that they would have taken at 1, and that is Abdul Carter, the edge out of Penn State. They will have that question mark at quarterback with Will Levis, but with the value, because the Giants are so needy, they very well could take a flyer on this year and prefer a guy in the next draft cycle. That doesn't mean they're going into the year with Will Levis. Free agency is wide open for them to add any veteran, add an Aaron Rodgers, and be fine with it for that season, more so than I think Daboll is with the seat being as hot as it is up in New York. So the Titans, they go ahead, trade back. They're going to expect to be picking pretty early next draft cycle to get the quarterback they could pair with Abdul Carter, a former teammate. But enough of that for that. That's way too early mock drafting. Let's go ahead and let's get into the pick number 4.
Yeah, my Patriots sitting here taking Travis Hunter happily at number 4. It was reported this weekend that they see him as the best cornerback prospect and the best wide receiver prospect in this draft class. So it's safe to say that if he's there at 4, they are taking him without even hesitating. They'll run that card up to the podium. They will not take a beat to think about it. There is a possibility that they could trade back, but I think that's only an option if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are both off the board.
On to pick number 5, we have the Jaguars here, and we're going to have them selecting Mason Graham, the D-tackle out of Michigan. He's kind of just best player available at this point right now, and the Jaguars are a team that needs to add best player available. They have a lacking defense, and while they could add offensive tackle, there isn't really a clear number 1 tackle, especially after Will Campbell's measurements came in at the combine. So we have them going with that top defensive player. remaining on the board. If you see Travis Hunter and, as maybe the top, Abdul Carter definitely seems to be the consensus top guy right now. Mason Graham right behind those two. And then, I think this is just a huge way to improve their D-line, and their D-line is certainly weak, despite the additions they've made to it and the signing of Josh Allen to stick around.
Yep. Then at 6, we've got the Raiders taking Will Johnson, the cornerback out of Michigan. Got back-to-back Michigan guys here, so shout out. The Raiders have needed corner for quite a while, and with Pete Carroll and his time with Seattle and the Legion of Boom having strong corners, I think that Will Johnson kind of fits into that pretty nicely. They obviously need quarterback, but here at 6, we don't have a quarterback falling to them that I would feel comfortable mocking this high.
Mm-hmm.
There's some smoke around Jackson Dart maybe being a first rounder, but I definitely think that's like a 28-32 first rounder, not a top 10. So I think with no good QB options on the board, they opt for, again, kind of best pick available on defense, but Will Johnson definitely will make an impact on that in that Raiders secondary.
For sure.
Then at 7, we have the Jets taking Armand Membu, the offensive tackle out of Mizzou. This is kind of the first shocker of the draft, of the mock so far. The Jets do need offensive line help, and it is very possible that after the combine, teams see Membu as OT1, especially with Will Campbell having disappointing measurements, especially with any number of other things happening. Membu tested very well, and the Jets add him to the offensive line in hopes of revitalizing that unit so that the next quarterback does not fare the same Achilles tear and bad performance.
Yeah. Then we move on to pick 8, the Panthers. We have them selecting Jalen Walker, edge/linebacker out of Georgia. The Panthers defense needs a spark. Dave Canales said on record in interviews, he said himself, hey, we need to make an addition on the defense. We need to be able to play defense the way we want to. And Jalen Walker is just such a versatile piece that you could play him at any number of positions in that front 7. And hell, you could even play him at nickel. You just get a dynamic piece that you can move around and see snaps everywhere. And that's just, with game planning, that is sure to improve your defense.
Did someone say versatile weapon? Anywho, at 9, we've got the Saints taking Shamar Stewart, edge out of Texas A&M. This is probably going to be the biggest riser we have all draft season. I mean, we had him go at 32 last mock, and now he's top 10. So his combine performance was insane. He tested athletically just outstandingly, off the charts. Sitting at our 3rd ranked edge rusher, if we're including Jalen Walker in that, on our board after his combine performance, the Saints are going to take a shot on him, a team we have long mocked an edge to, and in our 3rd mock, this is the 3rd different edge that we have had them take.
Then we get to pick 10, and this is where we have the Bears taking Ashton Jeanty, running back out of Boise State. Ashton Jeanty hadn't been available here for our past few mock drafts. We were very much on that Raiders train, but even with the combine and its, huge amount of smoke and mirrors, we saw nothing about Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders. So we were kind of projecting with the Bears. They went ahead and added Jonah Jackson through trade, and we project them to add more interior offensive linemen through free agency and not have that be a problem heading into the draft. So at pick 10, they're able to select Ashton Jeanty, somebody that I think Ben Johnson is perfectly capable of making him a top 5 running back year 1. And, if they really need to still make additions to the interior offensive line, that's a day 2 job, especially when you have Ashton Jeanty falling to you at 10.
Definitely. And as we exit the top 10, if you have enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to stick around for all of our offseason draft content and beyond. But let's keep it going. Head into pick 11 with the 49ers, opting to trade back a couple slots, with the Dolphins moving up to take Will Campbell, the offensive lineman out of LSU. Due to his disappointing measurements at the combine, at least I personally now officially project Will Campbell as a guard rather than a tackle. His arm length isn't completely unheard of, though it is exceedingly rare for a tackle, but his total wingspan is completely unheard of to play tackle. It would be the shortest wingspan of any tackle since at least 2011. That was when I think wingspan was properly tracked for tackles, so likely long before that as well. But the Dolphins would jump at the opportunity to take such a promising offensive lineman because even as a guard, he is a great prospect, kind of like Peter Skoronski 2 years ago. The Dolphins need help basically everywhere on the O-line, and Will Campbell is the best option to help everywhere on the O-line. And also, little point, I think if there is any place that could let Will Campbell be a left tackle, it would be a place with a lefty quarterback, because right tackles typically can have shorter arms and not hurt as much from it. Again, wingspan, still an issue, still think he'd be a better guard, but if anywhere would let him be a left tackle, it would be either Miami or Atlanta, because those two places got lefties, and the left tackle is then not a blindside protector, so you don't need to be as lengthy there.
Yeah, not as stout on the side that isn't the real weakness of that offensive line for the quarterback's division, at least. That leads us to pick 12, and we have the Cowboys here, but we're going to actually have them trade a good ways back to pick 20 because the Broncos are calling. The Broncos see a tight end prospect that, from everything we've seen, all the hype around him, seems like he should be a top 10 guy, but positional value is going to move him out of that. The Broncos see that, and they're not going to let him fall to the Colts, who are another team that is definitely tight end needy. We had them pick tight end in our last mock. Broncos are jumping them to select Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. Sean Payton, definitely gets a little hard on for those wildcat tight end tricks that he can play. So I think he's going to slide in perfectly there. And the Broncos are going to trade up and immediately submit this card because they are so high on Tyler Warren and what he could do and the ways he could improve the offense, even after a great rookie year from Bo Nix.
For sure. Then at 13, we've got the 49ers after their trade back with the Dolphins taking Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. With Debo already gone and Brandon Ayuk being shopped, the 49ers need to add to the receiver room through the draft. They're about to pay Brock Purdy a ton of money, and whether you think he deserves it or not, they're going to do it. So they need to have dynamic players on cheap or rookie deals during the length of his contract, because that is how it works when you have expensive quarterbacks that need those high-end producers.
Then we've got pick 14, the Colts here, and finally we're not having a trade happen for the first time in the teens. Well, I guess the third, 12 isn't a teen, 11, okay, whatever. Finally, we have somebody sticking and picking, and they are going to be taking Nick Amonrari, safety out of South Carolina. It's just such a stunning combine performance for him. I mean, this is also in our boat of most riser. We didn't have him in our last mock, so moving from out of the first round into the first round at pick 14 is definitely an option. And the Colts, we have had them taking safeties in mocks before. We have had them adding to the DB room and adding someone who had his stock just skyrocket for being so athletic. Definitely would be a great piece to add for the Colts.
Yeah, then at 15, we've got the Falcons taking Mykel Williams, edge out of Georgia. Mykel didn't test at the combine, and that means we're letting him slip a bit here. The Georgia native would be thrilled to stay in state, and the Falcons would be thrilled to get a prospect of his stature at 15 at a position of dire need. Just curious, have we discussed how badly the Falcons need pass rush help before? I feel like we haven't. Talked about it enough. Because
I don't know. I think there's probably 7 mock drafts from last year, and all of them had them taking edge, and not one of them had them taking a quarterback. It's kind of up in the air. I'm not super sure, but
I think we discussed it during the entire podcast season this past season as well, and through our first 2 mocks as well. Did we mention they need edges?
They need pass rush. Get it off the edge or not, but edge is probably where you're going to get it. And Mykel Williams slips this far, they're going to scoop him up.
Absolutely.
At pick 16, we have the Cardinals selecting Johnny Barron, cornerback out of Texas. We love defensive picks for the Cardinals, so if you're a fan of the Cardinals out there and you want to let us know if we're a little too heavy with kind of having them go defense all the time, let us know. Because right now, it's Johnny Barron for the Cardinals, and they could plug and play him at any position throughout the secondary. He's very versatile, or they could move him around on a snap-to-snap basis. After the great combine he had, we love to see the love he's getting.
For sure. I know you were pretty high on him even before the combine too, so it's cool to see that pan out. At 17, we have the Bengals taking Tet McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. This is another guy that's just slipping super far down our board. He didn't test in the combine, but that's not exactly why we're dropping him down. It just kind of is how the board fell this time. And T. Higgins was franchise tagged, but I don't see a world in which the Bengals are able to pay Jamar Chase more money than any non-quarterback in the league, which they have already committed to doing, as well as retaining T. Higgins when he knows he can hold out and get wide receiver 1 money elsewhere. This is also the second year in a row that he's been on the tag, so I don't see him playing on the tag again, because the hope was that you play on it and then you get an extension. And he played on it and played great and still doesn't have an extension. This leads the Bengals to needing a replacement for a 6'4" big body receiver. And what better replacement than a 6'4" big body receiver, but on a rookie deal?
Yeah, and definitely like with Tet, he's in wide receiver one conversations out of this class, and we've already had wide receivers go ahead of him with Matthew Golden just from that combine rise. And so this slip, the Bengals get a wide receiver one of the class at pick 17. That is insane value for them.
Definitely. And it would make the loss of T. Higgins a little bit easier to stomach for them, I think, and their fans. Then at 18, we have the Seahawks taking Donovan Jackson, the offensive guard out of Ohio State. The Seahawks, it's the same with the freaking Falcons and their edge rush that they need. It's the interior O-line help. They need it. Kenneth Walker needs your help, Seahawks. And as such, we will be giving them that help until they prove to us that they will, yet again, ignore the glaring need of their offensive line and take something else. Donovan Jackson has a bit of flexibility to the outside. He replaced Josh Simmons at offensive tackle when Simmons was injured this past season at Ohio State, but he's a true guard that would revitalize the Seahawks' interior offensive line, and again, hopefully help Kenneth Walker have at least a couple of yards before contact.
Oh man, seeing him get even one would be impressive. Then at pick 19, we have the Buccaneers with Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. The Bucs need to add some defensive talent into the building. They've been letting some walk as the years go on, and they've been keeping the offense nice and steady with a revolving door of offensive coordinators, but the defense, it's losing more pieces than it has in the past few years. You need to make additions there so that way you can, have a strong defense still. They've had a strong defense for the past few years, but it's kind of been dwindling. Adding Mike Green, I think, revitalizes their pass rush. And then we've come to pick 20. We have the Cowboys after trading back with the Broncos, and honestly, they get the board to fall very nicely into their lap. They select Tyler Booker, offensive lineman out of Alabama. They get to pick their future guy at guard, and that's after falling 8 picks down, where the value for taking the guard wasn't as high. So at pick 20, the Cowboys are able to replace Zach Martin with hopefully the next future franchise guy at guard.
At 21, we've got the Steelers taking Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. The Steelers have question marks basically everywhere on their roster, but if they want to put Justin Fields, fingers crossed, Justin Fields, or whoever else in a better position to succeed, Burden is definitely the choice here. The Steelers are always able to field a team that's just good enough, but taking a bona fide wide receiver 2 instead of relying on the corpse of Mike Williams or Van Jefferson puts them in a position to actually improve their offense instead of just being stagnant and being just okay.
Yeah, this also just kind of feels like maybe Mike Tomlin loves collecting the thirds, Isn't Calvin Alston a third? We got Luther Burden the third.
Is Presley Harvin a third?
He's really adding on to him.
I don't think he's there. He's not their punter anymore, but I'm pretty sure he drafted a third at punter. So yeah, we'll continue with that. At 22, we've got the Chargers taking Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. Jim Harbaugh is very much hard-nosed, run the damn football type of coach. Omarion fits that perfectly and had a great combine performance, and he will give them, hopefully, a more reliable option at running back than J.K. Dobbins and a higher quality one than the Gus Bus.
Yeah, this one is, once again, we didn't even have Omarion in our first couple of mock drafts for this year, and he had a great combine. And it seems that running back value is going up. We just saw Saquon get a monster deal, and it seems that, maybe teams are going to be more willing to take these first round shots on them. I mean, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs, someone who went as highly in the draft as he did. It was a huge shock, and he was as successful as he was. And I think with the Chargers, what they're building, I think Omarion slots in perfectly there.
Yeah, absolutely. Then at 23, we have the Packers trading with the Ravens, or rather the Ravens trading up with the Packers to take Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. The Packers do have needs, but nobody that they're in love with has fallen to them. So we currently project Ronnie Stanley to leave in free agency and hopefully come to New England. Go Ronnie. Leaving the Ravens without a left tackle entering next year. Josh Simmons is here at 23, and the Ravens look to jump to take him before somebody can jump from the early second that is also offensive tackle needy. I think Josh Simmons is probably one of the better offensive tackle prospects, but that injury and the question marks surrounding it drop him down most boards to past pick 15, I would say, is the earliest I've seen him. And this would be a great replacement for the Ravens and for Ronnie Stanley.
Yep, and then at pick 24, we have the Rams who are trading up with the Vikings. Vikings, they could take an assortment of players at this pick, but they get a great trade option with the Rams. They don't have to move back so much, but the Rams do pay them a little bit of an extra fee because they are moving up to jump the Texans. And the Rams will be selecting Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. And, that's why the necessary jump was there for the Texans. They have had a good wide receiver core. They're losing Stephon Diggs, and they've kind of had a little bit of an injury bug run through their wide receiver room. So would it be a shocker to add Ohio State wide receiver to the Texans wide receiver room? No. Rams, they don't want to see that happen. They jump them, and they find a Cooper Kupp replacement in the form of Emeka Egbuka.
Then at 25, the Texans, very pissed at the Rams, go ahead and select Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman out of North Dakota State University. The Texans don't have like a glaring hole in the offensive line that I'm trying to plug here, but it really wasn't performing up to standards, whether injury related or not, and CJ Stroud struggled accordingly. Gray Zabel can be a plug-and-play guy across the line, though ideally just on the interior, and gives the Texans an option if Shaq Mason continues to struggle or if injuries continue to befall the unit.
And then at pick 26, we have the Vikings after that trade with the Rams, and we have them selecting Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. Now, this ends quite the amazing slide that we initiated here for Starks, but it's just a very poor combine performance coupled with the fact that 2024 wasn't really his year. He came into 2024 looking like he was going to be a top 5 pick, and he just kind of hurt his stock throughout the season, not performing to the standard he did prior. And then, we see the Vikings here. They get a little bit of extra capital, trading back 2 picks, and they are able to end his slide pretty safely, adding a safety that could immediately start and could start much longer for them as the future goes on with more snaps and more snaps as we see some of their safeties age up.
Yeah, I mean, Vikings taking a safety out of Georgia in the late first kind of gives you flashbacks of Lewis Cine, but hopefully Malachi Starks is a little bit better than Cine. Then at 27, we have the Packers after their trade back with the Ravens taking Maxwell Hairston, cornerback out of Kentucky. While the Packers may not have preferred their options at 23 to a trade back, they still need someone, namely a cornerback. With the organization reportedly looking to move on from Jair Alexander, Kentucky's Maxwell Hairston is their choice to replace him. A stellar combine posting a 4.2840 among other great numbers skyrockets the Kentucky product into the first round.
At pick 28, we have the Lions, who are going to be trading back with the Eagles. The Eagles are moving up to select Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama. We have the Lions with a handful of needs, but nothing really precise right here that we think that they are in love with. And so the Eagles, they see a big need with the Zach Bond possibly departing. And we have them trading up to get somebody who really has slipped very far in this mock draft. And he is a young piece you won't have to pay a lot, who could just continue this insane regime that the defense of the Eagles has built up. They have been becoming a monster, and keeping the cap hit nice and low by not signing Zach Bond and getting a linebacker through the draft like Campbell would really just further that mission along. So this was even more incentivized by the fact that the Eagles are jumping the Commanders at pick 29, who are another team that could be seeking to get a linebacker after letting Bobby Wagner possibly walk. But that leads us to pick 29 with the Commanders. We have them going Walter Nolan, D tackle out of Ole Miss. After adding talent to the offense through trading for Deebo Samuel, that really makes me want to lean defense with the Commanders' 29th pick. And so, Jonathan Allen's also seeking a trade, and they tried to couple that in with the Deebo trade, and that didn't happen. So they possibly could be already got their eyes on getting the replacement here and having Jonathan Allen go somewhere else for minimum comp. So here they're taking Walter Nolan, just a D tackle who has upside in pass rush and good run stopping as well.
Yep. Then at 30, we've got the Bills taking Darian Porter, DB at Iowa State. The Bills basically gutted their team last offseason, and somehow they got better, but not at cornerback. The group had some solid players, but when the starters went down, it showed their lack of depth, and it was ultimately their undoing against the Chiefs in the playoffs. When Kaiir Elam was on the field, really showed that he's not, in fact, starting caliber cornerback in the league. And Darian Porter had a standout combine performance. He was 6'3", ran a 4.3, posted a 9.99 relative athletic score, which we haven't referenced this video, but always cool to see the culmination of all of the testing into one little number. and a guy that, again, skyrockets after a great combine performance.
At pick 31, we're sitting here with the Chiefs, and man, oh man, it's kind of mind blowing that we had him slip this far, but we also had Josh Simmons slip to where he fell. So Kelvin Banks Jr., offensive tackle out of Texas. The Chiefs' dark magic works even on draft day. They get a tackle who, for some, is seen as a top 10 or a top 5 on big boards, and I mean, it's not even a question. This is going to be an instant submit. You need to add people to the offensive tackle room because you are so weak there, and that was so exploited in the Super Bowl on the biggest stage. You know, kind of similar to what always happens to Mahomes on the biggest stage when they ever lose the Super Bowl. But, you know, we have them filling the hole at pick 31 with Kelvin Banks Jr., which was just kind of crazy and coincidental that we had him fall this far. Yeah. Then, with the Lions at pick 32, after trading back with the Eagles, we have the Lions taking James Pierce Jr., edge out of Tennessee. Now, this was the Combine Risers mock draft, so why isn't James Pierce selected any sooner? There's mumblings about some character concerns, and, you know, with that probably moving him down some teams' boards, we have the Lions who have such a strong culture that they can definitely outlive one negative character player. And if they, you know, don't really see it as an issue, the issues pertaining to Pierce are that, oh, he had his foot out the door for the NFL. Well, now you're the NFL, so where are you going to have your foot out the door to now, James? I think Lions with a huge pass rush need, especially with seeing some of these DBs go. With Harrison gone before their pick, they traded back, and Darian Porter gone now. I think edge is definitely the move to make here. But that wraps up our first round mock draft here, and man, it was kind of a fun one. We had 6 trades. I think it was a little trade heavy. Did them in nice little bursts, but great. I'm very happy with how this ended up.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the draft is, like, the actual draft is always way more trade heavy than any mock ever is, and it's never anything that really makes sense. Like, the draft itself is completely unpredictable. You can kind of have some player fits, like we did with Quentin Johnston 2 years ago. We both had him go into the Chargers pretty heavily on those mocks, and yeah. But any whoosies, if y'all enjoyed, as always, drop a like, comment down below, tell us what your team needs, tell us why the pick was dumb, or why you like the pick that we made for your team or others. And do you have
educate us on why we're stupid?
Please
for
do.
Some of your teams, as I kind of shouted out, Cardinal fans, let us know if you need defense or if we are just blind to some huge glaring need on the offense. If you really need quarterback, I don't know, man. I don't watch Cardinals games. I'm out of market.
Kyler Murray.
Yeah, go ahead and let us know with any of your team's needs that we didn't address. But with that wraps us up here. Mock draft, post combine. Deuces.